I'm Fion Wright, your China Dream coach for entrepreneurs and executives. Welcome to Season 1 of the Your China Dream Virtual Summit. In this episode, we have Elijah Whaley, co-founder of one of the top 5 beauty influencer brands in China and CMO of PARKLU, the influencer marketing platform in China. His advice and encouragement has been instrumental in building my own brand on multiple platforms, and I hope that this interview can help you do the same.
Hello, my name is Elijah Whaley. I'm the CMO of PARKLU and co-founder of a beauty KOL, Melilim Fu. My number one tip for success in China is identifying a niche market and driving to being the number one in that space through passion and continuing to push forward.
Today, Elijah?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For the people who are watching today who might not have heard of you or heard your work, could you maybe do a bit of a self-introduction, who you are, what it is that you do?
Sure. So I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska, and a little bit of Florida, and we had talked about a homeschooled kid, and kind of a little bit of made a career shift in my mid-20s where I had decided that where I was going wasn't where I wanted to be eventually, and so went back to school to study international business. I'd already been in a lot of video and film production and live video, and wanted to shift away from those things, and went back to school, international business, and realized that, hey, I think I can hyper-growth my career in this hyper-growth economy and part of the world that really seems to be on track to change the world too, and kind of likening it to maybe opportunities post World War II in America or something like that. They're just like a lot of entrepreneurism and a lot of growth here, and so studied and came over and tested out the water in 2011. Thought it was awesome. Came back permanently in late 2013, and my goal was to get away from video and get into kind of marketing and maybe some travel related kind of stuff. And the first thing that I did when I got back, or when I got here, was produce a travel show for Tencent in America. And so I was like, wait a minute, I'm going back to the place that I just came from, and I'm getting back into video production. And that led into really where I found my footing, and that is in content, social media, and online content production. I was exposed at a really early stage at that time too to KOL marketing, which is an area that I've specialized in now, and I thought it just lined up with everything that I believed. One of the reasons why I wanted to get out of video in the first place was because I could see the democratization of content coming and the quality of gear improving, but the cost lowering. And I knew that it wasn't going to be the quality of paint, it was going to be the quality of the painter. And I didn't believe in myself as a world-class painter, and so I would never be able to achieve my own ambitions in that world, or my own desire for success and things. So I wanted to get away from that. And then I was exposed to this KOL marketing thing, or this KOL space, and the idea that anybody can produce content that is valuable to people, because the range of human interests are infinite. And within each one of these niche areas of interest, one of these verticals, there's going to be experts, and there's going to be entertainers, and there's going to be people who serve that community through the production of content and the sharing of that content and community building. And that was a dynamic that I thought was incredible and incredibly powerful, and I see this as something that's an unstoppable force. There is, we will not revert back to mass media. I do not believe that's going to happen. I believe that there will be ebbs and flows, and people want quality content, and but people will sacrifice quality for their own interest, to serve their own interests. And so I saw that as a really unique dynamic that I ended up getting into. I met a very beautiful, very interesting, talented makeup artist who later became my girlfriend. And I asked her, one of the first things I asked her when we met was, what's your goal career-wise? And she said, I want to build a product brand. And I just got done reading Content Inc., which is about content marketing, and from Joe Polizzi, and really, really great organization. I said, well, why don't we do this content marketing thing first? You can build a marketing channel, and we'll do it through this KOL thing that I'm learning about. And so we've been driving at that for almost 3 years now, and just got done doing a project with NBC Universal, like shooting beauty films for Kardashian show, and like but she's become a top beauty influencer in China, and that's also rolled into my career now as being a CMO for a KOL marketing technology and agency. And so it's kind of like, it's for me, it's been really interesting to kind of make these observations of where I think things are going, and kind of making a little bit of a roll of the dice, and been kind of fortunate in the area of making good predictions and having that guide my career a little bit.
It's an interesting balance there between sort of being a founder of this influencer brand and then also sort of working as a CMO in PARKLU. Could you tell us a bit about how that balance works, and what is it exactly that PARKLU does, and how does that sort of add to, or how is it connected to what you do as an influencer brand?
Sure. Well, in general, I think for anybody that comes to China, one of the things you're first going to realize is everybody has a side hustle. Like, nobody purely is just doing a 9-to-5 job. Everybody is doing something on the side. And I really adopted to that really quickly. I'm here, and I think most expats are here to work. Like, we're here to crank away, build something. Whether you're going to be here for a short time or a long time, most of the people that I know, besides, maybe some of the other, maybe some of the teachers and things like that are here for fun and to have an experience. But the professionals that are here, they're here to crank away. And so like, I saw this as an opportunity to do something in the background while I was doing other stuff that complemented it. As a content creator, my passion is about making stuff that affects people and that drives a core business goal. And so being in marketing and advertising and content creation, this was a nice handshake. And I'm also here to, like, I'm not here on vacation. I'm here like even more so than the Jojo Leo, the 9 to 9, 6 days a week. Like I'm like 7 to 10, 7 days a week, and that plays to my own personality and to my own goals and things, and so because I'm not with an organization that pushes me to that extent, I'll push myself to that extent, and it actually complements really, my opportunity to become CMO of PARKLU was because I had become well known in the KOL space as one of the only Americans that was doing this type of thing and having this type of success and talking about it and writing about it and telling people about it. I was creating content and doing talks and writing blogs, and so I had an opportunity to go over to, I had already met the founder of Kim just online, or of PARKLU online, or just through WeChat, and we couldn't find an area to work together, but we were both speaking at a conference in Paris and obviously she was talking about it from a brand agency technology side, and I was talking about it from a KOL content side, and then just kind of stars aligned kind of thing. It made sense to be with a technology company. And so PARKLU itself is 2 parts technology, in that it provides data and analytics on the influencer ethos in China, and then it also provides a search engine and a very practical tool for an end-to-end solution for creating and managing influencer marketing campaigns and communicating and escrow and tracking and all of that stuff. And then it's also 1 part agency, so a lot of brands, influencer marketing is quite complicated, and it takes a fairly high degree of skill and and it's a steep learning curve. And so to get clients on, we have to provide them a level of service to train them how to even use the technology or to work with influencers and to really leverage it. It is quite powerful tool to be able to communicate very intimately with audiences through people that they're following and interested in. But unfortunately or fortunately, influencers are generally quite authentic in that they're not business-minded, advertising-minded individuals. They're entertainers and experts and content creators, and commonly not business-savvy, advertisers that are that built their businesses to serve other businesses and to generate income. They're people that were passionate about a topic and built a community. Some of that has changed and is changing with the growth of incubators and multi-channel networks and agencies that specialize in that. But generally, you need someone to help you with that process.
But you mentioned coming to China, sort of having this idea about it, that there being a lot of opportunities here, and seeing sort of on the big picture. I'd like to dig a little bit more into that. Like, why specifically China? And then, you came here and you started up stuff. And why have you stayed?
Well, I had actually. But part of it is I've spent 2 years of my life backpacking around the world, and China was one of the places I hadn't gone. So there was some interest there in that, like, if I'm going to choose somewhere, let's just choose somewhere I haven't been before. And through my education, like, I was able to realize that, just putting the pieces together, this is where all the action's at. And the numbers at the time when I, were thinking about coming over were more impressive than they are today. When I was thinking about it, there were double digits kind of growth. And the growth now is still, compounded. You're talking about doubling the economy every 7 years kind of thing, or 8 years. It's still very, very interesting, but it wasn't what it was at that time. So just doing the numbers, like, it made a lot of sense. And there's some mystique too about China. Like, most Westerners aren't educated on Chinese history and culture in high school, and I was very much the same. I didn't have a lot of exposure to China. It seemed like a little bit of a dark continent kind of thing, in that you don't know. And I think that in most humans we have a very there's some part of us that wants to explore and go somewhere that see things you've never seen before and have that level of excitement, and so, like, I thought China was gonna fulfill that part of me. And then and then part of it was very, very strategic. I wanted to hyper growth my career, and I think to somewhat I've proven that to myself. I don't think in the time frame and in the space I'm in and my own personal demographic, financial, education background, I don't think that I would be able to be a CMO of one of a top tech company agency in a space like this in the States. I don't believe that would have happened for me. And in a relatively short amount of time to have been able to do that type of thing. And again, that's just because from the time I've been here, the economy's doubled. And it's created a lot of demand for talent, and I don't consider myself a world-class talent, but I'm just enough to be able to be part of that, a little bit of the cream that rises to the top kind of thing. And there's a lot of churn that takes place and such, and so, like, those opportunities, if you're really, really going for it, you can achieve a lot in this space.
You mentioned there about, like, not knowing too much about China before coming here. And I'm wondering, like, what assumptions did you have about China or business in China before you arrived, and how has your understanding shifted or broadened, or how have you become more aware since you've arrived?
I didn't have a lot of some of my. I don't know, to be honest. I think maybe I've almost forgotten what I thought before, so maybe it's better for me to almost reference what other people think kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of people that believe that China is a land of like no freedom and some amount of backwardness or poverty or lack of opportunity, when it's actually, to me, it's the exact opposite. Like I don't agree and always have, and I have some issues with things here that I have the same thing as I have issues with anywhere that I would go, but I do feel that there's a sense of freedom and opportunity here that isn't even accessible in my own country, and I don't feel the repression or the things that maybe a lot of people have an inclination that China's this place that doesn't allow people to act in certain ways or to express himself in certain ways, but because of how what's interesting about it is because of how the culture is and because of how the economy is and the government and the structures here, a lot of the stuff that people are concerned about, say in America, or people aren't concerned about here. They don't talk about that stuff. Like, when it comes to politics, someone else is taking care of that. I don't think about that stuff. I don't argue with anyone. I don't think about it. And Chinese people, I think in a great degree, don't, because that's not something that they can necessarily affect, but it's also not something that they have to be concerned about, because someone is doing the best that they can to handle that situation and has proven themselves to be quite apt at leveraging their power to the benefit of the majority, and is grown the nation to what it is today. And so you can't argue with numbers, and you can't argue with what you actually see. And so when someone says like, well, what about these restrictions, a little bit of like, what restrictions are you talking about? This is the fastest growing economy in the world. We're creating the most opportunities for the most number of people anywhere. So what are you talking about? And so we don't talk about those things. We talk about our lives and our ambitions and where we're going, and in some ways that's kind of a really nice place to be.
Having been here for how many years now?
I first came in 2011. There was a little gap in there, but
about 7 years or so. Over that time, what would you say are some of the difficulties that you encountered, some of the obstacles, and how did you overcome them?
I think where do I start with this? There's a couple of things. Integrating into Chinese working culture is a really big challenge. To be honest, I've only worked for one fully Chinese owned and created organization. It was actually a Chinese propaganda organization that created media about China and distributed it globally. And so I was in an organization for about 9 months that was a propaganda machine of the government, housed there, that even itself was not promoted as that, or people didn't know that that's what it was, but I figured that out pretty quick. And I found that to be extremely challenging. I found that the organizational structure and the top-down kind of approach to leadership and how they manage things did not jive with myself, and I could not adapt to the environment. It's one of the reasons why I could only stay for 9 months, because I found it to be so challenging. And so I don't think everybody would have this problem, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't be in that type of environment. I'm an A-type personality, and so taking leadership from someone that I either don't respect or don't agree with, or doesn't allow me to express myself or take the actions that I think are appropriate, is just not going to work for me. And I think there's many foreigners who have experienced that in Chinese organizations. They have many of them are quite steep structures, authoritarian kind of environments, and that can be pretty challenging. Some of the challenges I think come, and part of that is associated with relationships, whether they be intimate relationships with building a few local person, that there's some conflict there on how we deal with relationships and how we interact in intimate engagements and things like that. I think some of the other funny challenges, though, have been like, China's gotten really expensive. I mean, since 2011, it was cheaper than my hometown, which is a, you know, third tier city American kind of environment. And now it's like, it feels like in some ways you're living in a New York, or, you know, it's quite expensive. It's quite expensive. And so keeping up with that has been, you know, that's a pretty good challenge. I think also right now we mentioned this, and I think it's a real thing that people need to be aware of, that China is not as interested in foreign talent as they were 7 years ago. Like, they've got a lot of people that are highly educated, extremely sharp, being educated abroad, and they don't need foreign talent to the degree that they did before. And so now their restrictions on allowing the type of talent they allow to come in now is being, you know, there's a filter process taking place for sure, and rightfully so. I don't blame them for that, but I do identify it as a challenge.
You spend a decent amount of time here working in different companies, just sort of getting some experience. How did you come upon the niche that you're in? Like, how did you decide, you know, influencer marketing or KOLs, that space? How did that process happen where you're like, oh, this is my thing?
You know, a little bit of, again, like I think that anybody who wants to be really career driven and in that space, like, you have to be able to kind of look in a crystal ball, your own crystal ball, and say, this is my prediction for the future. These are my skills, and these are my, this is what I think I would be most adapt to in this environment that I see taking place in the future, not right now. And so I looked at myself and said, you know, even though originally I'd come over here and I was like, I'm going to get away from this whole creative space, I'm going to get away from video production because I don't see myself as a world-class talent. I see myself as quite a subpar talent in some of those ways. But when I looked into the crystal ball, I saw that, oh, you don't have to be a world-class talent. You just have to be able to some degree, be able to make predictions and be able to put yourself in the right place with the right people. And that's one thing about China, like, relationships are extremely important here. And you cannot succeed in China, in my belief, you cannot succeed in China without relationships to be able to leverage. And so knowing that too, knowing that you have to be in a position of either access to those relationships or developing those relationships, or, you know, that's part of the China, like, chess play game in business. It's important everywhere in the world, but I feel like it's more important here than anywhere else in the world, because you won't be able to beat out your competitor if no matter how talented you are, if they have better relationships than you. And so so I was somewhat fortunate in the relationships that I had established and things like that. And, you know, it's funny to me now that, like, the work that I do in my home studio, and whether it be pictures or video or stuff, is seen by millions of people across China. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I know, I suffer from a lot of, like, not anxiety, but, like, self-doubt, in that, like I like my stuff, and I'm pushing myself creatively, and I'm learning things, and I like the things that I create, but knowing that that people are paying me, big organizations, you know, the biggest fashion and beauty organizations in the world are paying me on a regular basis to create stuff for them, and it's being then visibly seen by millions of mainly females across the country, is really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre. And a lot of that was, you know, making predictions and just putting yourself in the right place and having the relationships to be able to leverage to make that thing happen.
Just coming into specifically your niche, like how did you find out like this is my thing? Like it's interesting how you're sort of putting different pieces together. Like you had the video from before, and then now you figured out the relationship stuff in China, and then how did you come to the place like where you are now, where you're like you're doing this and you're sending it out to millions of people? What was the sort of, was there a decision somewhere along the way where it's like I'm going to do this instead of this, or has it been very much gradual? Like how did that happen?
I believe that one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in life is to not have a final destination, a goal. And you're allowed to move that final destination. The more you move that final destination, the more that potentially the work you've done will have, there is some amount of waste that will be taken depending on how much you move that final destination, on that pendulum swing kind of thing. But you have to have that. And you have to be able to have something to drive towards, because if you're not driving, you're going somewhere. But wherever you're going, you're not taking the most, you're not optimizing the work that you're taking if you're not moving towards something. And so I've always taken the approach of, this is my final destination. I have the freedom to move that along my pendulum, and I'm not gonna do a 180 because I know I would have wasted all the work that I've done, but I'm allowed to move within this range. And so I knew that I had a passion for content, even if I wasn't creating it myself. I knew I had a passion for communicating with people and being creative, and I wanted to adopt that to business because I wanted to be able, I knew that I didn't want to be a starving artist or control of or oversee starving artists. And so that allowed me to put a final destination in there. And so just through kind of process of elimination and opportunities and growth, I've been able to move within this space and continue to modify that final destination. But it is a little bit of, you also have to be very aware, especially in China, because things are moving so fast. You have to be able to adopt very quickly and say, this is the opportunity, and I'm going to take this thing, and I'm just gonna commit. And you can't, you can't be afraid here. Like, indecisiveness will lead to death, and that's just because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And then you have, a billion people striving to go after all of the opportunities that are being presented to them and that are shifting and that are being created. And so, I think, I feel very fortunate. There's an amount of luck, but I also feel like you put yourself into positions where that luck can happen. And so, and it just can't happen if you're not there. That opportunity will not present itself. And when that opportunity presents itself, you can't head fake. You can't hesitate. You can't hesitate. You have to take that thing, and you have to move fast, and you have to jump on, and you have to not be afraid. And so there's been a lot of amount to that. And then, the back end of all of that is that, again, and I think it's really funny that you have like, I love, and like everybody, I think I love and hate Gary Vee. Like, he's a really, really awesome guy, and he's also super annoying, but he is like, what he's doing for the motivation of young people and entrepreneurs and pushing and driving is amazing. But the really funny thing is what he talks about, and his thing about how much I work, and I'm gonna prove it to you, and I'm gonna vlog my life just to show you, like, dude, that's an average person in China. Like, everybody's doing that stuff. You're so proud of how hard you work. Dude, everybody does that here. That's not, like, that's part of our lives. Like, everybody is hustling. That is why China is growing, 3, 4, 5x everybody else, is because everybody's doing that. The standard, our standard for multinational businesses use a Jiutiao Liu model, let alone some entrepreneur who's really striving and really has goals for their lives and trying to crank away. I think most of those guys would put Gary Vee to shame. like he gets a lot more rest on the weekends than they do. And so that's what is, I think that's what finding a niche is about here, is also just being really, being a slave to whatever your passion is.
If people are looking to find out about you or your work or PARKLU, where do they find you online? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure, it's parklu.com, PARKLU.com, and I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and just Elijah Whaley. It's, maybe I have to spell it out for him somewhere.
It'll be there, yeah.
and you know, I have personal websites that I don't maintain very well, but LinkedIn's a good space. And then, you know, I'm totally open to people adding me on WeChat and stuff like that.